Okay, well, we've got a pretty good crowd to start, and I imagine some people are going to join us along the way a little bit. There's interest in the Western Drive property. We finally found a resolution that we can put in writing um, so that we can move forward on that. They've made three presentations, so we'll hear from Peter on behalf of the LUDRC. I see Christine Newbert on the project and David Crimmins, the architect on the project, are with us. So let's call the meeting to order at 7:34 on March 26th. Um, oh, wait, where are we? April what? April
April
30th. I'm
30th.
sorry. I'm sorry, guys. I've been like this all day long. On April 30th. And for those of us who've had a chance to review the meetings from the minutes from the March 26th meeting, any changes that anyone noticed? Okay, so I move that we approve the March 26th meeting.
Second.
Thank you. Those meeting minutes are approved. Uh, do we have police with us at this time? Not yet. So what we generally do, if and when the police show up, based on and I'm never sarcastic or displeased. They are now at about 80 active officers, down from over 200. So I do ask, people to realize that they are overwhelmed and overworked. So if they do show up, we'll pick them up when they come and let them go about their day. Usually, when they are speaking, it is not the officer on duty. So that means that somebody is coming here in their own time, or their evening time or overtime. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with the president's report. And I'm just going to touch on what I consider to be some really good news things. The Public Works, I've been working really carefully with the Parks Department and with David Rogers, who's our supervisor for our parks. He has 30 parks. So he's the busiest of them all, but he has spent 2 days putting the sprinkler systems in place in the town triangle. So we now have sprinkler systems behind the fire station. Yay. And we have them behind and surrounding the History Association building, which will allow Women's West Side and the PRNC to move forward with the new landscaping program. Most of that money did come from or the seed money, I will say, came from the Gateway Foundation grants. And what we're doing now is we're working with Women's West Side a lot. So we'll take a big project that may be more expensive than we can get grants for, and we split it up and we work together. So Women's West Side is handling the History Association plot.
Officer
And
Ignorant has just arrived.
I see that. We'll finish this, and then Officer Ignat just came in. Well, here, police report. And then the PRNC is handling the area around the kiosk and behind the fire station. And we've got some PRNC funding above and beyond the Gateway grant. And we want to try to do as much of the town triangle as possible because it's much cheaper, of course, to do it all at once. We do have a commitment from a check is in the mail from Sims. I am anticipating Phillips 66 is going to chip in, and I'm hoping to get a little additional funding from Hakeem. No pressure because you're in the room, and from Chevron, and also some additional funding from Republic Services and from Veolia. So I'm hoping we have enough money to just totally renovate the town square in the style of that triangle behind the library. So it'll be drought tolerant plants, lots of mulch, some stone for visual support, visual interest. And hopefully it will cut down on the number of weeds and dog droppings and really beautify our town triangle. So I'm going to go to Officer Ignat now, Ignat, because I know that he's busy. Thanks for joining. And you're muted.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Hey, man. Thanks for being here.
No problem. If you hear the radio in the background, it's because I'm working right now. So just real quick for the month of April, looks like we've had for the Point Richmond district, we've had 170 calls for service. The majority of these are self-initiated calls, being abandoned vehicles, security checks, and we've had 34 calls regarding medical. an ambulance, a couple of 911 disconnects, suspicious persons, public disturbances, alarm calls as well. Out of those calls, only 13 reports have been written. Um, and those reports have been four for petty theft, three for grand theft, one was a vehicle tampering, two were domestic violence related, and then one was a suicide.
Hmm. Officer, is that number of calls for medical help, is that a standard number? That sounds like a lot.
So it can stem from a lot of things, which is on Railroad Avenue, there tends to be homeless people as well as Dornan, and just living out of vehicles and different things like that. And so sometimes people will drive by and see a homeless person laying on the ground not moving, and instead of contacting them for safety reasons, I'm sure they just call the police and say, hey, there's somebody laying down that looks like they're not moving. And so a lot of it stems from that, or same thing on Dornan. People can be in vehicles and someone sees them kind of hunched over the wheel or just lean back in the seat, and it's like concerned citizen. So a lot of them stem from that, but it also you get your regular someone fell down or someone's having some type of medical emergency as well.
Thanks. I know that I called for a homeless person who was new in town, who was just out of their mind in the middle of Dornan and Canal, and cars were swerving. And so basically it was a welfare check. You know, I called in and they did come. I couldn't get her off the street and onto the sidewalk. Um, uh, and I know that there's been some red tagging. Can you comment a little bit on what looks like a really stepped up um, parking control effort?
Yeah, that's been a big part on Sergeant Melgoza and the parking enforcement crew. They do the majority of that. We do some of it as well, but most of that is on them just getting after it throughout the days. The more calls that we get, the more things that are brought to our attention where um, we can be notified that this is going on in certain areas, whether it's illegal parking, whether it's abandoned vehicles, just so we can address it. Obviously, we don't like seeing that stuff on the street, and we want to help, the neighborhood be clean and
Mhm.
those type of cars get out the way if they're expired or just hazardous in any way.
One of the things that we had pointed out in the past that I'm asking Michelle Malam to follow up on, so that includes our beat officers, including yourself, is that we have a full-on homeless encampment situation, as you mentioned, on Railroad and in front of the plunge again. This is something that happened a couple of years ago that got better, and now it's back. Sign of the times, perhaps. But we feel that these traffic checks, when people see red tags appearing on these abandoned vehicles or folks living in their cars, um, are a very highly visible way for the drug dealers or criminals to see that the police are present, because you're not physically present as much as you used to be due to staffing. So um, I, for one, think these red tags appearing say, okay, there are people coming through our community and kind of keeping an eye on the neighborhood. So I'm personally really grateful for that. Does anybody have any questions?
I just want to second what you said. It sends a strong message visually when they're not being able to be there. So I appreciate it as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Anna. And I encourage all of you to get the City of Richmond app. Anybody who doesn't know how to download it on your phone, call me or stop me in the street. I'm all over the place. Um, it's a very, very easy response. And I just want to mention about the app. When you make a code enforcement or you report any issue on that app, it goes directly into the computer system, the same as if you had called someone who physically put it in. So you're going directly to the source and it opens a case, and then it's the city's, the appropriate department's responsibility to address and close that case. So if you're familiar with how to use apps on your phones, please stop me if you don't know how to do it, and I'll work you through it and show you how it works. It's also geotagged, so if you see a vehicle, it's gonna automatically tell the police or the code enforcement people where the location is, and that's an optional geotag. So that's great. Any more questions for Officer Ignat? Wow, you're in and out, sir. I appreciate your service and thanks for coming and keeping us as safe. And I know you guys are working super overtime, so we really appreciate it.
Hey, no problem. Thank you guys for your time. I'll see you next time.
Okay, thanks so much, sir.
All right.
Um, so back to my good news list. Judge Carroll Park, that corner is almost finished. Those people who purchased benches, I'll remind you that the function of selling those benches was to finance the bench for our beloved crossing guard. So that's now a dedicated bench with plaques on it. Um, I would say 90% of the work and money for that project came from the Hurlbut Foundation. So when you see Gary and Maren, please thank them. Um, Later, in the end of the summer, there will be a celebration of some kind to celebrate Maxine Finley, our crossing guard. And we haven't figured out how that's going to look yet. I'm working with the PTA and the elementary school to try to do something that will incorporate the children. And so we'll let the community know. And it may be just a little campaign where we all honk and wave, or we have a little party, or hopefully I want to do something with the children and ask the community to come. And we're working on maybe a backpack giveaway or something. I'm not sure. It's about budget. But maybe some members of the community can help with that project. And hopefully the school is desperate for adult volunteers to help around with the kids. So I'm hoping that we can make a little community there. But do take a look at Judge Carroll. Those little bushes that are planted will get up to 3 feet high. So probably by the end of the summer, they'll be about 1.5 to 2 feet high. And that will soften that corner up. And here's the man himself, Gary Hurlbut. We were just talking about the great work at Judge Carroll Park. We have Susie Davis here, who's a neighbor who I haven't seen much of. And she lives on Santa Fe and was trying to organize. And I'll put in, when I stop talking, which seldom happens, I'll put my email in the chat. Um, she wants to organize some neighbors in and around Santa Fe to speak at the public works, or I'm sorry, at the city council meetings to compel the city council to ask Public Works to take care of that landslide on Santa Fe that they covered with plastic. And that's, Susie, that's well over a year, isn't it?
Gosh, well, it's been covered in plastic for probably about 3 years, but then
Okay.
this last winter, I'd really just got on the horn and I wrote to everybody and I wrote to Tom Butt and he really helped me. And
All right.
he got the emails to the right people. And at that time, the plastic was shredded and
Mhm.
was falling into the street and it did not look like it was going to do any good at all. So the city did come in, and I'm in touch with Robert Amijo
Mhm.
about that. And so they retarped it. So now that, the tarps all look all fresh and they cleaned out the gutters. But he says they still have no long-term plans for it. And the truth is that this whole hill it's known to have slid. Like we live at 209 Piedmont. It's a big 3-story house with a big, and behind our house is Golden Gate Avenue. Well, back in the 90s, Golden Gate Avenue, there was a huge slide there, right down into the foundation
All
of
right.
our house. And our entire backyard is rock that's just been
Yeah.
stuck there to hold the hill in place. But that's
I
just,
know, yeah, I know where you live. It's a very
yeah.
vulnerable neighborhood. We don't have time to really kind of review the whole situation, but the
Okay.
point I'd like to make is I'm trying to start to organize groups of folks to keep on the city council. So and I'll help coordinate that for you, Susie. And
Okay.
definitely we started talking about Keller Beach before the meeting. If you're in Keller Beach, there's nothing to stop us from just showing up at a city council meeting and reminding the council that this project is, the Keller Beach Sewers project is still not really satisfactory to us. Caesar's fighting for us, but there's a council majority who, I don't know, there's millions for everything, and then all of a sudden we can't find $40,000 for the tunnel. So, I just feel like we need to just show up and show up and show up because it's very easy for larger organizations to call a bunch of people into those meetings and everybody, 50 people show up and then, you know, uh, the little projects get lost. So if you are interested in maybe joining Susie or a bunch of us go and speak up about this and just ask, stress it, put it on the record so that if something happens, there is legal there's sort of notice that there's a problem, so the city can't pretend they didn't know it was a problem. I don't think it hurts to continue to speak up. So, and I figure, then we can all go to Denny's or whatever and have something to eat. So, make it social. It doesn't have to last all day. The public comment sections come really early at the beginning of the meeting. Unfortunately, the meetings are really early now, so it makes harder for working people. So I just wanted to introduce Susie and her little campaign, and I'm on it. I agree with you, and I'd like to see Point Richmond people showing up every council meeting to remind them of our challenges. Caesar, are you with us?
I am.
Caesar, I know that Caesar and I and the board discussed whether or not we should make kind of a formal presentation about what's happening on Canal, but the changes are pretty self-explanatory, so we thought it might just be a nice review for Caesar to comment on the lighting and then the new traffic markings that are coming up, review what has already happened at the port, and then I have an update on the pumping station.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you, Philip. And good evening, everyone. A quick update on on Canal Boulevard. So as I don't have to tell you, you all know it's a hazard because people drive really fast up and down it. And a couple of months ago, we had a meeting with city staff and Philip and a few other members of the PRNC to review potential solutions. I wanted to put up some speed bumps and just try to do something to slow down traffic. The PRNC members and staff kind of came up with some other ideas to try to slow down and do other preventive measures around Canal. And now the area that I'm speaking about is from Cutting all the way to the entrance of the port. So just you can imagine that area there, trying to slow down traffic, make it easier for people to drive down, but not so easy that you can just speed through all the stop sign in every intersection. So that will be coming as long as there's no opposition or everyone, if you have questions, let me know. But that's going to be going up, and it's we can do it as sort of as a pilot to see if the community ends up liking it, and then we can make it more temp or permanent. And then past the entrance of the port all the way to the warehouse, if you drive down in that area, you'll see a couple different new updates. One of them is gates around areas that were prone to having sideshows and donuts. We also put some berms in some areas to make it more difficult and skinny up the road. So in areas where people had a lot of space to just do the donuts, now it is going to be very difficult for them to do that. The gates can be opened if you have a key, but they're not open to the general public. You'll see them in different locations. And in some areas of Canal Boulevard in the port area, you will also notice some speed bumps and speed humps, also to slow down traffic. And then by the warehouse, all the way at the end, where there was a big sideshow a couple of months ago, that area has also been locked down. So now the only individuals that have access to that are those that need to be in that area, and you'll need a key to use the gate. Other amenities that are going to be going up are cameras, so that we can better see who's going in and out of that area. And then the police can use that if necessary to track down anyone that was involved in any sideshow activities or any illegal activities. So that is some high level of what's going on around Canal from Cutting all the way to the end.
Caesar, you had mentioned that one of the reasons there was a delay in the street lighting is that they're thinking of switching makes perfect sense to me that they're thinking of switching over to solar lights so that we don't have a problem with wire theft. Is that accurate?
Yes, yeah. So that's come up a couple of times in the CIP. We're going to be looking to fund them so that we can start doing them throughout the city, not just Canal. If you drive down Richmond Parkway on the corner of Richmond Parkway and Castro, there you'll see what one of those new lights will look like. So we do have a couple of them as testers around the city, just to make sure that they're going to work and they're going to do what they're intended to do. So if you drive around, you want to see what they look like, take a look. They look very nice. At the very top of it, they have a big solar panel, but the light itself looks nice. I think it'll be a nice new addition. The good thing about that is that there's no wires, so people can't steal them and then have no lights until we replace them again. So hopefully this is a step in the right direction. They are very costly, so we're not going to be able to do every light around the city all at once. So we're going to have to take it in phases. And Public Works is coming up with the prioritization list all around the city, figuring out those that have been out longer, those that have keep getting the copper wire stolen.
Thanks. AT&T tells me that Point Richmond is one of the highest theft rates for copper wire. Richmond for sure is by far the biggest copper wire theft city, particularly on incorporated areas or long stretches. But as for occupied areas, it's Point Richmond because it's quiet. We have trees, and those of you who know my neighborhood, they stole almost the entire block of copper wire on 2 different occasions by climbing the trees. So anything that can give us lights without copper, without wire is really good. Thanks, Caesar.
You're welcome. And then also for the if I could just say really quickly on the landslide project. So I emailed back, I think you were CC'd on there, I believe, Philip. Yep, you're on there. So that there is no funding, and that is correct. So I'm going to be bringing that forward. I emailed the city manager and I said, this is a perfect example of where we should be putting some of the funding. So she said to bring this up during the budget session to include as a priority for the capital improvement projects around the city. And if anyone joined the special meeting yesterday, you'll kind of see how, or one of the tools that we're going to be using to prioritize projects around the city.
I'm a little, and I see that James has a question. I'm just a little confused and frustrated because the city council is voting $2 million for the $4 million trail in Point Malate. And I think it's a reasonable question to say, how can we find $2 million for a trail that is like that's part of the Bay Trail, so that's regional, but it's 2 million of city money, but we can't find 40,000 for the tunnel. We can't find whatever 10,000 or 20,000 it might be to deal with the landslide situation. Are these separate budgets or how is it? Because all we hear is there's no money, but then there's money for all kinds of things.
Yeah, so they're all in the same bucket. It all comes from the general fund, and how some items can sometimes be prioritized or sort of moved around is so that particular one that you're speaking about in Point Malate, that one there is not for the Bay Trail, is actually to hold up a part of the side of the road from eroding into the beach.
Is that city property?
It is.
Okay.
That's part of the city property. So there, and it happens to be that it will be near where the Bay Trail will be, but it also can affect vehicles and anything else, because once that slides down, then it's going to affect much more than just the Bay Trail. But the reason that is only going to cost us $2 million is because there's matching funds.
I understand.
So there we can make the money go twice as long. So we can invest $2 million and we're going to get, I think it's $3 or $4 million to help with the project. And that is going to include part of the Bay Trail, but that's just part of it. but the 2 million that we're putting towards it is going to be to help repair and maintain the area that is also sliding on that area, because that can cause the street there to completely be blocked off from the rest. And
Thanks for clarifying.
there was some they came in. I was trying to learn more about where it was going, but then for future projects, that one of the points that we're going to be using is, do we have matching funds so that we can make sure that every dollar that we have, we can try to double it. But then one of the other things we're going to be looking at is the age of a certain project or area, and then trying to look at equity as well. So Point Richmond being one of the oldest neighborhoods, you may get a lot of points because all of your infrastructure is going to be pretty old compared to Hilltop, for example. Hilltop has a lot newer infrastructure. So trying to figure out that, prioritizing by safety. And there's other points that we'll be able to use to help prioritize the projects. But right now, the money that we have, it's either already been assigned somewhere or we're waiting for projects for the new fiscal year, which will begin July 1st. So this news that we're looking for more funding will be put in hopefully into the new CIP bucket. And then the timing will then, that would be the next step. So if we're able to figure out some funding, we don't know how much it will cost to fix that. So we'll have to probably do a study, and that will most likely be the first step, putting money towards a study. And then they say it's 100,000, 500,000, 1 million, whatever it might be, then we have to find that money at that particular time once we know what the cost will be.
Thanks for correcting me and for clarifying that project. James, you had a question, and Jesse has a question, and then we'll get back on the meeting schedule.
Yeah, Caesar, do you know if there's any funding being allocated to the traffic signal system, particularly like Hensley and Castro Street, where the vehicle detectors are pretty much the signal system's on fixed time, and Canal and Cutting, I reported that as a problem in 2006. This isn't something that Public Works can handle in-house. It requires a contractor to either upgrade or replace the vehicle detectors. They call them loops in the ground, or sometimes there's video on the pole, but these signals definitely need attention.
Yes, that is a line item in what Public Works is trying to get funding for, to work on for the following year. Which intersections are going to go first, I'm not sure, but all the ones that you reported, I've also reported. They're all off all around the city. It is old infrastructure, so we do have to update it to the new, because the one that we have now, from what I understand from Public Works, is on a timer.
Yeah.
So one side is for example, 2 minutes, the other side is 2 minutes, the other side is 2 minutes, et cetera, whether there's a car or not. And what you're speaking of now is sort of the new technology that looks at cars. So there's no cars, and it doesn't turn red or green depending on if there's vehicles or not. And that's the technology that we need. And so that's in there as a need and a want from Public Works. So we just have to make sure that we put budget towards it.
Yeah, traffic signal vehicle actuation came out in 1928. It's time to upgrade.
Yes.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thanks, James. Jesse.
Yes, very quickly, I know, Cesar, that you've been super involved in solving the problem with Republic Services stinky compost facility. And my impression, but I haven't been around as much lately, is that it is getting better. Could you give me your assessment of the progress that's been made?
I don't have an assessment yet from the last. So as council members, we all get to sit on different boards. And one of the boards I'm actually the chair of now is the Recycle More JPA. And the Recycle More JPA oversees the contract with Republic Services and the agreement between the city of Richmond and actually all the cities in West County and the landfill or the transfer station. it's called the Golden Bear Transfer Station. So we oversee that agreement, and through that I spoke to the executive director or the interim executive director and let him know of these issues. And we're going to be bringing that up to Republic Services to make sure that as we're redoing the new agreement, that is mitigated and that we can help solve for it. But they're aware of it. I've reached out to Republic Services, have had many calls with them, and also keeping track of it through the Recycle More. And then to add one other thing to everyone's list, the Department of Toxic Waste is looking to change regulations to allow all landfills to now be able to take, if they pass this rule, to now be able to take toxic substances into the landfill. I spoke against it last week. So now it's a matter of waiting for them to make their decision, but hopefully they do not rule on that and make it legal for the landfill to be opened up. And to get in front of that, I'm agendizing on the Recycle More board to put into our agreement with Republic Service that they are to not allow it as part of our agreement. So even if the state says yes, we're hoping that our agreement will supersede that and will not allow it. So just to keep that on your radar as well, we might need more community action if something happens, but we're hoping it doesn't and that we can resolve it in multiple ways.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Caesar. We'll let you know. And Jesse, I know you've been out of town, at least from my neighborhood, which is 1 block above yours. I think it's been much better. Has anyone had any particular problems with Republic in the last couple of weeks? Seems to have gone away. So our loud voices seem to have done work. Caesar, thanks for being an unexpected guest speaker. We'll just move forward through the I'm going to do the treasurer's report. Margie is traveling. So we've got, we received some money from the Gateway Foundation. And so what we'll be doing is we're going to work with the same gardeners as Women's West Side to start that gardening project, I believe, within the next 30 days. So we hope to have it done in the first couple months of summer. And then we will present the idea of spending some of our funding to, as I mentioned casually at the beginning, to increase that landscaping project. So we'll be cleaning up around behind the fire station, planting and doing that xeriscaping there, sort of around the corner by the kiosks. And we have money, as I mentioned, coming in from an extra $1,000 coming in from Sims. I anticipate money from Veolia. So we should have enough money to really do a nice job on the town triangle and kind of complete it. So it looks pretty tidy and organized. And again, thank you to the Public Works Department. So that's the outcome. The outgoing money was set aside for this, and then we have a few $1,000s coming in, at least this far, from grants as well. And when it comes to money, thank you once again to Chevron for financially sponsoring Spring Fling, a much smaller and more friendly neighborhood version of National Night Out, which is going to come in the summertime. It's not going to be a street party. It's going to be a little more old-fashioned, to the tune of a neighborhood get-together. And also, this is a good time, since they're here, to thank them for sending 10 volunteers, because Spring Fling was a madhouse of excitement this year, but there was a lot of work, and 10 volunteers from Chevron who did everything from set up tents and trash cans to keeping the kids busy. So as part of that money related stuff, I wanted to mention them. Eric's here for a quick report on what's going on with membership.
Yeah, thank you and good evening. So we have no new members to report out. So we're still at 195 members who are active and paid. But what has occurred in the last month is we have had a number of members make payment to renew their membership. So we appreciate that. A lot of activity there. And if you haven't, or if you have any questions about where your membership lies, just shoot us an email and we can help. So thank you.
Thanks. And our system with PayPal is very screwed up. So, and Edie and I are going to be taking a look this year at pretty much revamping the website and its functionality. So if you've paid your dues, we will know, but you still may get notices from PayPal. Please ignore them. I'm sorry. We don't know how to fix it, and we're going to have to hire somebody. And if anyone has a good web designer who might be able to work on those interactive aspects, if you are or know one, please send that reference in our direction. Now we're running a little bit late, but we will catch up. I'd like to welcome Hakeem and Rachel from Chevron. Hakeem, are you going to be presenting today?
Yes, I'll be presenting, and then Rachel and Craig will be present to help answer all the difficult questions that may come our way.
Hi, Craig. Thanks.
Hey.
And this is exciting, good news for our environment and for our community.
So thanks for having us. So before I get into sort of our spiel on what's coming around, just wanted to introduce myself to those who may not have met yet. Hakeem Johnson. I'm part of the Richmond Corporate Affairs team at the refinery. I work a lot with Philip, and happy that we're always able to partner and engage and address difficult topics on top of everything else, but showing just how well it is if we just have an open dialogue between the refinery and members of the community. So thanks for having that open line of communication. I've been with Chevron for 20 and a half years now. It's time is going by, but before I go into sort of my key points in our very, very brief slides, I also want to give time for Rachel and Craig to introduce themselves, because they are the true geniuses behind us moving forward with this project. So Craig, or
yeah, I'll go. Can you all hear me?
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah. So obviously you're stretching the word genius a little too far. So hello, I appreciate this time. My name is Craig Cadden. I'm the project manager at Chevron, responsible for the wet gas scrubber project, and we'll get into that. So thanks for the time. Appreciate it.
Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, because I got kicked out and I had to come back in under an alias. So hi everybody, I'm Rachel Justice, and I am the permit specialist and environmental specialist working with Craig on this project. It's good to meet everybody.
So with that, I will attempt to share my screen. Give me a moment. All right, so can you all see the slide?
Yes.
Okay, let me make minor adjustments on my side so I can follow along and talk. But first off, again, just want to thank you all for having us tonight. I know timing is a little bit off, so we'll try to get through this just as quickly as possible. But before we begin, just wanted to share with you all a brief update on the Chevron station. As you all recall, you all helped be supportive of the changes that were going to be taking place. The station closed in February, and it takes about 6 months to continue to work. And so we're anticipating that station to be open in September. So new station ready to be up and going. And of course, it was always a blast. Our volunteers had nothing but great words to say about their participation in Spring Fling. So again, thanks for the consideration and partnership, and willing to engage. So as we get into this, I just want to share with you all that Chevron continues to remain committed to investing in our facility to help lower emissions. And we're proposing 2 new projects that we believe will help generate a significant environmental benefits for the Richmond community. And while most of it will be discussed on wet gas scrubber today, there's also a solar farm, floating solar farm field within the refinery property that's going to help provide about 15 megawatts of clean energy to our operations. But first, we'll touch on the wet gas scrubber, which is going to lower emissions from our fluid catalytic cracker unit, which is the FCCU. And it's going to comply with the most health protective and stringent regulation of its kind in the country. Right. Chevron continues to donate and give to nonprofit organizations. Since 2012, we've donated $52 million to our nonprofit partners, which supports workforce development, the unhoused issues, STEM education, and the youth. If you all recall our modernization project, which was approved some years ago, we're up and running. It is now fully integrated into the refinery. And just over the past few years, we've already seen major improvements in how we're operating. And one of those improvements is just the reduction in particulate matter emissions by 40% since 2018. So we're happy with the progress that we've made so far, because through the modernization project, and happy that we're committed and attaining the promises that we made, which also included a no net increase in criteria air pollutants, no net increase in the health risk from toxic air contaminants, and no physical increase in greenhouse gas emissions. We know that it's important to the community, right, for Chevron to continue to invest and modernize our refinery, to ensure that it's the best that it can be for Richmond today and both in the future. But Chevron needs the help and support from leaders and the community to make it happen. Now, back in 2021, when the Air District was going through its rulemaking process and amending Regulation 6-5, the city of Richmond actually submitted a letter of support to the Air District, calling for the most stringent regulation to be passed. And so a couple of years had gone by, and just last year, Chevron and the Air District had come to an agreement that the wet gas scrubber would be the primary technology that would help secure and reduce particulate matters emissions from the fluid catalytic cracking unit. If you don't mind me saying FCC, that's a mouthful for me. But installing a wet gas scrubber and reducing these particulate matters is important because it also enables a key gasoline producing unit to continue to meet the demand for the fuel in the region, while also complying with that that protective and stringent regulation, which is the most stringent of its kind in the country. Currently, Chevron's FCC unit produces about 8% of Northern California's gasoline. So it's very important piece and part of the process of what we do. Now, a wet gas scrubber uses water, right? And the water will release a lot of, oh, sorry, got a break come up on my screen. We have these notices that come up that forces us to take breaks, so I apologize for that. But the wet gas scrubber uses water it will release a lot of water vapor, which looks very similar to steam. If you look at this on the screen here to the right, there's the photo of Valero's wet gas scrubber out there in Benicia. And so that water vapor cloud that you see is what is the result of the wet gas scrubber operating. Now, based on the location of where our FCC will be, it'll be along the refinery hillside. And so we expect that the visual impact from the steam plume will be minimal to most people in Richmond. And Craig and Rachel, if I miss something, just jump in and correct me.
It's all good.
Will do.
So I'll just keep on going. And so while the visible plume will vary based on weather and operating conditions, it does not pose any impact to the community. It's more like steam coming off of a pot of boiling water. That's how you can envision that. Now, the reason the decision of Rule 6.5 came about was an effort to reduce PM emissions, particulate matter emissions from the one unit that that emits the most emissions from the refinery, right? And so the FCC, based on data provided by the Air District, the FCC in Richmond it accounts for about 48% of all of the refinery's PM 2.5 emissions. And so the implementation, the Air District estimated that by implementing Rule 6.5, this will reduce the total PM 10 at the refinery by nearly 65% from its current emissions. So a significant reduction there. Now, from a job standpoint, this will protect, it will create temporary union jobs during the construction period. And we're committed to ensure that people with the right skills are doing the job safely during construction. As I mentioned earlier, the city of Richmond supported the implementation of Rule 6.5 with their letter of support. And we are going through the permitting process right now. So the city of Richmond is the lead agency that's overseeing the approval of the project. And the Air District will also have its role and play its role in the process as well. Now, the public will have an opportunity to learn more and provide comment during the public permitting process. We're anticipating sometime this year, probably within the next handful of months, to be in front of the design review board at the city and eventually at the planning commission as well. And so while today we're not having a direct ask, we just wanted to share this kind of more of at a high level of what this wet gas scrubber would be and the benefits thereof and address questions related to it. But as we continue to move forward and go through the CEQA process as well, there will be more opportunities to engage, and we will have a more direct ask for your support in moving this through because of the overwhelming positive benefits to emission reductions in Richmond. And then I'll just touch briefly on the solar project. Here, we are proposing to have a combination of a floating solar farm as well as just some normal solars, which is similar to MCE. But we're building on the success of that Solar One project, where they're generating 10.5 megawatts of solar powers to the public grid. This solar field will generate nearly 15 megawatts of electricity, intended to reduce Chevron's use of electricity from the public grid. I'll just leave it there, but as we continue to identify projects in the future, we wanted to just touch base and give you a sense of two exciting projects that we are looking forward to going through the permitting process. And so if you examples of what the solar farm solar project would look like, there's floating solar panels And then there's the similar panels to what you all are noticing from, you know, the MCE solar farm that's on the property as well. And so with that, I will attempt to stop sharing and address any questions that you all may have. And anything that's extremely difficult, I'm planting it over to Rachel and Craig.
Looks like Bruce has his hand up.
Bruce, you have a question?
Yes, regarding the floating solar panels, Hakeem, what body of water are they floating upon?
It was the old 250-foot channel there within the refinery. So that's the location of the farm of the floating solar panels.
So it's not tidal waters.
To my knowledge, no, but I can confirm with the team that's working on that and come back with a better answer.
Wow, this
Bruce.
is.
Jesse, do you have a question or a
I
comment?
do, and I can never drill down to raise my hand. I just can't remember how to do that very often. So thank you. Is it okay to ask an environmental Chevron question that's not directly related to these two projects?
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, well, I have been curious. For many years, we have known that the problem with this, what we call the sour acrid odor, was coming from Republic Services compost facility blowing over past West Gertrude and so on. I used to go stand at West Gertrude with people from Chevron and the county and local citizens, and we could smell it coming from over there. But for some reason, for years, Bay Area air quality inspectors had it stuck in their head that you guys with your biosolids pond or whatever it's called were the problem. And I know it wasn't, but could you just give me an elevator speech about what that pond is for?
So, Craig, do you want to attempt to do that? I know we don't have the folks that oversee it, but we can try our best to answer that and then get back with more.
Yeah,
Well,
any simple.
I appreciate that you recognize the smell wasn't ours, so that's awesome. Unfortunately, I don't know much about the pond that you're talking about. Pulling up Google Earth, I was trying to answer Hakeem's question or whoever's question about the tidal water. It looks like it's not. It looks like it's sort of blocked off in a totally different color than the bay water. But sorry, I can't answer that. Maybe Rachel. Maybe we can get lucky. Rachel's from our environmental group.
Well, the bioreactor is one element of our permitted wastewater treatment plant. So we do process, well, Chevron does process all of the wastewater, and there's several pieces of that.
Is that the aeration pond that Sue's referring
Yeah, it's the aeration. Yeah,
Okay.
it's the aeration pond.
Yeah.
So it's one piece of that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. That's enough. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks. Rachel, I would like to ask a question about it.
But I'm an air person. I'm not a water person. So.
that might be the
Oh,
actual question, because it angers me. There's room for improvement everywhere, and oil refineries are never going to be popular. So, but it bothers me when every time I pick up social media, anytime a fish farts, it's your fault. Anytime there's a car accident, it's your fault. When the price of eggs goes up, it's your fault. It bothers me a lot.
Can't blame eggs on Chevron.
Right. It bothers me a lot when our community says Chevron is causing odors and everyone jumps on that bandwagon, because what happens is that people are then not reporting the odors where they're actually coming from.
Right.
And so I think that we're doing a disservice if we blame everything on Chevron when in fact Republic Services or
Right.
in the past, the Veolia, which I have to say has gotten a lot better also, happened. So there was a time when I got all up in arms and I called Hakeem to bitch at him about people on social media. And he said it was, in fact, that pond. And that I had never heard of. My husband was in the oil business, so he was familiar with what that pond was for. And at that time, there was some kind of algae growth or something, and then they put flowers on it. Then it smelled like floral mold, and it was all nice for a while. But I've lived here 35 years, almost 35 years, and that was the first time I've ever had an issue with even realizing that pond existed. So the question is like, or maybe other members of the community like Jesse, it it seems like that happens very infrequently, that odor is caused by that pond. Can can you comment on how often that happens, or
I,
I'll attempt it.
oh,
Well, just from the number of calls, I think we can look
yeah,
into that. But we do have the noise and odor number that I believe you all have shared out a lot, and we always encourage, even if
Mhm.
you don't know if it's us or not, we always encourage folks, if you smell and you think it's us, or we make a noise and you think it's us, to call, right? And then if something, if there is some sort of reaction that's going on in the ponds, um, we can take immediate action to reduce what that impact would be outside of the fence. And so as is the smells or anything that's happening at the ponds, we can take and put out, I guess, aerators or something along those lines to sort of um,
Odorant.
diffuse the odors. So we do have that now. The Air District, I sit on the AB 617 steering committee group as well, and the Air District is all, they have a phone number and a way to report odors and everything else as well, that they too also realize isn't necessarily being utilized, and is not as, members of the community aren't as aware that they should be also calling the Air District, because they can also get out and do their investigations as well. And so I know, Phil, I know the exact number of how many times the refineries ponds have been the source of the smell. We would have to do some digging to get that exact number.
that wasn't? I was just interested if it was often, because I was just surprised to find out about it,
Yeah,
And it seems like maybe the question was rhetorical because it couldn't be that often, or we would know about it.
correct.
I don't know. Okay, Peter.
Yeah, the confirmed are much lower than the calls or the complaints, right? Because
Yes.
Chevron does have an odor response team. So if a complaint is made and it's made directly to the Chevron, we do have a 24/7 staff that does sampling to identify. So there is a odor response team,
Rachel, I've had your people come to my house
Yeah, see?
at night. Within 10 minutes, I live close, within 10 minutes
Yeah.
of my call. So
Mhm.
good on you for that. Peter has a question.
Well, I assume that this pond has an oil slick over the top, and that's going to prevent odor from getting into the air. But this wet scrubber, that's essentially a bong, right? A bong for the
What's that,
system.
Peter?
And
Well,
and at
this is a fun group.
well, and at a certain point, the particulates dissolving into the water reach a point where you will have to dispose of it. Does that go into this pond?
So let me speak to it. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're not wrong. So essentially what a wet gas scrubber does, it kind of applies it in the name. So picture just like we have like the combustion gas, right now it's just going to the atmosphere, and we're going to divert it. We cool it off a little bit more, so we're kind of minimizing our evaporative loss, and our water usage isn't as high. And it goes into this wet gas scrubber, and the scrubber itself's like, 110 feet tall with the scrubber, and there's a 90-foot stack on top. And everything that goes on inside, it's like, just picture a giant shower, and there's different zones, but that's all it is. So we're scrubbing. You're totally right. As we evaporate water off the top, the contaminants will concentrate inside the scrubber. So similar to how we operate a cooling tower, we have to let off a little bit of water. So we maintain a chemistry. And as we're absorbing, one of the major components that we're cleaning up is actually SO2. The scrubber is really good at doing that. So the water becomes a little bit acidic. In order for the scrubber to work, we balance the pH. So we do add a little bit of caustic. We bleed off, I'll probably get these numbers wrong, Rachel, like 70 gallons a minute off the bottom. So our chemistry stays within range. And we do pre-treat that water. We're going to pre-treat it right there in the unit. And we remove the solids. There's like a tank. It's like a wide spot in the line, and the particulates will drop. Those are going to go into like roll-off dumpsters with like filter cloth. And again, as Hakeem said, this regulation is probably, I want to say it's the most stringent in the world, but don't hold me to that because I haven't done the research. It's certainly on any FCC that I've ever seen, and probably North America, with how stringent it is. But the water gets pre-treated, and then it goes into the wastewater system that Rachel was describing, which ultimately ends up in the ponds. And was it you, Peter, who mentioned the oil film? Yeah. So by the time it gets to the pond, there is no oil. It's already skimmed off. We have pre-treatment like stages in our wastewater treatment plant that handle that. So by the time you get to the aeration pond, it's pretty clean water. We're doing final treatment before we send it out.
So are you adding like soap to the water to
even
out the pH? Is that it?
Yeah. The only additive that we put in the scrubber is caustic to maintain the pH. But we're constantly checking. We can only run up to a certain concentration of chlorides and other contaminants before the water gets so dirty that it starts to create, particulate matter emissions. So we have to have a pretty clean water solution. So most of the water, though, is recycled within the scrubber, but we just have to bleed off a certain amount to keep the chemistry.
So you're running it through a filter to get out the particulates, and then you're reusing the water, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and I'd say I wouldn't call it a filter, but it functions like that. In fact, there's a portion in the scrubber, they call it a filtering module, and it accelerates the flue gas through like a venturi. And the particulates sort of collide and agglomerate and makes it easier for them to drop out.
All right.
Thank you, Craig.
It's a combination of chemistry and mechanical to physical to remove it. Yeah. And so to your point, ultimately the water will be treated in our existing wastewater treatment plant, but before it even goes there, it gets treated at the scrubber location. And with the oil, like upstream, or let's say before the pond, we do have equipment that separates the oil from the water. Just it's kind of part of wastewater treatment.
But I have used your technique before, not in an oil refinery, but yeah, with a stinky swamp.
Okay.
Thank you both, and thank you, Cheech and Chong. Bruce.
I assume the particulates mainly FCC catalyst. Can it be recovered, dried, and reused?
Question.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you're familiar with our FCC unit. We already have emission control devices on it that's pretty clean, and we're recovering the solids right now in a device called an electrostatic precipitator. We do have a bunch of cyclone systems that remove the bulk of it and clean it up. But then the last piece of emission control device that we have is an electrostatic precipitator, which puts a charge on the particle and collects it onto a plate. I think there's like small versions you can buy for your house. This is just, absolutely enormous. So we're going to do a combination of both. So we're going to recover some solids dry. The remainder will be recovered wet. in the scrubber. They'll be dewatered. I haven't figured out final disposition. So the amount of particulates when it's running normally with ESP on is pretty low. I think it was something less than 10 pounds per hour that accumulates. And it'll eventually go into what we call our clarifier, which is like a picture big tank. So the velocity is slow and the particles can drop. And they are going to be wet. We're going to dewater them. So it'll be kind of like a clay, like mud. And then that'll be shipped out. I haven't got final disposition of what we're going to do with that. And it's very similar to Valero, how they operate theirs. They have a clarifier and they recover all their solids. It looks like they recover them wet, but they're dewatered, but there's still a lot of water weight. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you, Bruce, and thanks, Craig. So I think the next steps with Hakeem will be, as always, Hakeem, give me a buzz when you need us to do something or when you want to present. There's a lot, obviously, of technical things that are sort of above our pay grade, but what we do understand is this is A, mandated, and B, an improvement. And I think when I discuss this with you, C, when everybody goes on social media because they see white something after this is installed, that the community knows it's steam. And we can respond that it's steam. So we look forward to having you back or to just forward any call to action, or if you need us to have another meeting. And because we're so short of time, I want to avoid any more technical questions and see if we can, if we need a meeting with technical questions, then we can go back to doing that. Peter, did you have another question, or is your hand still up?
No, it is, and it is a technical question, but I think it should be pretty quick. So my thumbnail calculation is you're getting about 300 to 400 tons of this particulate matter you're recovering from the water a year. What happens to that? Does that go into is that disposed of as a slurry, or is it dried and shipped off in containers, or what happens to that?
Yeah, we haven't figured out the final disposition with that. I know that we do. I don't know, Rachel, like what we do with our current ESP solids that are dry. It might be similar, but we just haven't finished that last little piece on where that would go.
Yeah, I would think they'd be pretty toxic.
Yeah. So Peter, I think we can probably try and find more time to discuss this and more, because I think the more that's shared, the more that the more that triggers the mind to get other additional questions. I think that'll give some time to coordinate both with Craig, outside of here. I know we're already kind of eating a lot into into you guys' night, and want to be
it was just the nerd in me that was rising to the top.
I didn't want to misspeak, but I think that we may send current ones to like a cement kiln. We may be able to do the same. Yeah, but I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That's smart. Okay.
So I think for the purpose of brevity, we have the question now, and Hakeem, email me the answer and I'll share it with the community.
Yes.
Rather than guess, and I don't think you want to misspeak, and I don't think the community wants to feel like you're winging it. So, any other questions before we move on? Or should I thank the Chevron team again for their help in the community and for presenting to us? Because I know that you're pretty much mandated to do this. So it's a little bit of a courtesy, that you make sure that we understand what's happening.
Yeah, and I just want to, as we're saying our goodbyes, one of the big things to also remember is this is, a emissions control device, right? It is not anything that is improving how much crude or anything else that goes through the refineries. Is purely emissions control there, and looking forward to coming back in the future, sending in requests, providing more information based on questions that have come in. And Phil, I just want to also thank you again, because you also are representing the Point Richmond Neighborhood Council group on the community action. Right, and on May 13th, there'll be the next meeting at COBIZ. But thank you for always being the voice for the folks over there in the Point. Very
Thanks, and I'll fill the community in on that, and I'll forward the invitation to that public meeting. Thanks, Hakeem and company. Rachel,
Thank
Greg, we'll see you next time.
All right. Take care,
Yeah.
everybody.
We're running behind, which is okay. But we do have an LUDRC issue that's likely to take a few minutes. So we're going to kind of run through the community briefs. Is anybody here from Masters today, Jim?
Yeah, just a few quick words. We're in the beginning phase of a play called Other Desert Cities. It's a family generational drama with a surprise ending and the most beautiful sets I've ever seen on the Masker stage. That will be between, it started April 25th, it will end May 18th. Plays start at 8 p.m. General admission is $35, seniors and students $30.
Super. Peter, I got a little tiny email from Cordell about the Richmond Neighborhood Coordinating Council. Is there anything of particular interest this month?
Yes, he did send me the report. It said they had about 20 people on Zoom, 9 on the dais, 12 people in the room to hear from the finance department in an abbreviated presentation on the budget. City staff gave their reports under old business, new policies, whatever that means, new business. I had suggested to invite Logan Robertson to present on the home match for mature adults. And that's his report.
Thank you, Peter.
Yeah.
Gary, you still with us?
Yeah, Phil, I'm here.
Thanks. You want to, congrats on the almost finished Judge Carroll Corner.
Yeah, I was going to say, one thing I want to say about, we were all thrilled how that came together very quickly, but I like to mention a couple things. Is it was really a team effort. Certainly a lot of the overall planning and implementation. Maren was a project manager. She's the best project manager I know. We argue about who's better at that, but she did a great job. But I would like to mention a few things, though. It really took a group effort to make this happen. Paul Stevenson, pro bono with Valier Landscape Architects, got together with us and kind of looked at what are we going to do there. And they did a great job, and we changed it some, but it all worked very well. The city really did a great job. Parks and Landscaping was managed by David Rogers and Alex White from Parks and Landscaping. And they get a bunch of heat sometimes, but they really did a great job. They did all the implementation design, and each plant that's in there actually has its own individual irrigation. They did the installation of the benches and helped with the planting, and they did all the mulching. So there was a very good effort by the city. Phil, Phil, you were around a lot. Phil was great and helped with the coordination and about the benches. And so the benches are out there, and we'll talk about Maxine in a second. But the benches were put in, a couple of dedications you'll see from, if you gotta walk by and see the little ones, you'll see one from Phil and Cecil, and one from Edie still on. Yeah, I'm sure you're still there. So she's there, and we've got one, but also what the biggest.
And also one from Anna, who's with us as well.
Okay, yeah, thank you. And Maxine was thrilled with the bench that she got in front, that we tried to not tell her about it until it got very near the end. But the plaque was helped out by Washington PTA and also Andrew Butt. And I know Phil is planning with a more formal presentation in the fall. She was thrilled, and she said she's a real hugger, so it was great to come by and she'll give you a hug. But that came off really well.
And I should politely correct you or gently correct you. It was a grant from the Gateway Foundation.
Ah, okay.
Supplemented by Andrew Butt's family to raise the price of that bench. So
very good. Thank you. And so lastly on that, the ongoing maintenance on that is really managed by, Maren and I worked on the maintenance around the plunge, the whole Hurlbut Court Park area. And that area on the corner also now is included within that. So the ongoing maintenance is going to be managed within that. And you may notice we just finished all the mulching, and not the mulching is going to come next week, but all the weed control around the plunge. So that's gone very well. And the weeds really flourished with all the rain we had this spring. So we're great. The project's gone really well. It's great to watch some of the people come across, now go across the corner instead of having to go around. So it went really well, and it really was a great group effort by all those people. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary, and thank Maren, who there is no question who is a better project manager. I'm sorry, Gary. It is the small but mighty wife. All righty, let's move on to Red Oak Victory. Graham?
Yeah. Thanks, Phil. Three issues. First of all, we've now moved to our summer opening times, which is on Sunday. We're now open every Sunday between 10 and 4. And we are moving into our pancake breakfast time. And the first one, or the next one, will be on Mother's Day, May the 11th, starting at 9 o'clock and until we run out of food. So please bring Mum along to that. And then on June the 15th, we have Father's Day and pancake breakfast as well. So bring Dad along to that. Still a good deal. $20 for a full plate. Kids under 8 get in for $5, and we sell mimosas and a few other things. So on a nice day, it's a wonderful way to take Mum and Dad out. With our ongoing movies, on May the 15th, we have Notorious, another great Hitchcock film. And then on June the 19th, we have our annual showing of Casablanca, which is always a sellout crowd. So please join us on that. The movies start at 6:30, and they're usually on the Wednesdays. So May the 15th for Notorious, and June the 19th for Casablanca. So please come. Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. Women's West Side. I know you've had some exciting things. Diane, do you want to report? Or Julie, you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Great. All right. Sorry about that. Anyway, we met on the 8th, and we meet in April and May, and we'll meet in June, and then have a summer recess and resume again in September. So during that time, we elected new officers. So more about that later in the essence of time. We had our Miller Knox cleanup on April 8th. We also did an impromptu cleanup on Earth Day. And you already mentioned what's going on with the gardens in the triangle, so I'm not going to belabor that. We had a booth at Spring Fling, and thank you very much, PNRC, for donating an awning to us. That was great. And I think that's all I have to report at this time.
Super. Thanks, Julie. I look forward to working with, actually, I look forward to watching you, Women's West Side, handle that project, and we'll write the checks. So I think that's a good relationship.
Okay.
All righty. And up next, we have ping pong. Any news or same old, Peter?
Well, I have to say it's gotten pretty popular, right? I think we've got about a dozen people every week. Some of them are, well, most of them are repeats. So it's very popular. I don't want to insult anybody, but this age group where I'm looking at right here would be perfectly at home there. It's very gentle. It's probably more of a social club with a ping pong problem than an actual ping pong school. And so anyway, if you have time on Monday and you want to get a little bit of exercise and meet some people your own age and talk about anything you can think of, it's a nice location. People tend to show up, and then next thing I know, they join the yacht club because they find it so congenial. So anyway, that's it.
Thank you so much.
Fabulous bar, fabulous fireplace. Don't forget that, Philip.
Yes, that is
Yeah.
absolutely true.
It's really a nice little cozy place. Jim,
Yeah,
right
we
up.
have, for Rosie the Riveter
Sorry, Rosie.
in the month of May, we have a presentation about Port Chicago, the disaster there on May 7th. That'll be a Wednesday at 11:30. And then I'm going to be giving 2 new talks. I haven't done them before on Japanese American relocation during World War II. The first one on May 8th is background, dealing with racism in California and migration. And then the relocation, that's on May 8th, Thursday at 2:30. And then 2 weeks later, on May 25th, is the relocation itself and the aftermath. That's also at 2:30 on May 25th.
Thanks. And if you haven't heard Jim speak, it's really an experience at Rosie. What I'm going to do now, we have the LUDRC scheduled in. That's going to take a few minutes, and people are passionate about this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip this for 3 more minutes because the rest of the community briefs, most of the people are not here. So this will allow those who are here just to produce their briefs to get through that section, and that will give us more undivided time to spend on Western Drive. So we're just going to bump up. Richmond Cert is not here. Charmaine is traveling. Arch is not here. Bonnie Joe, I have not forgotten you this week. Kate is not here.
Thank you.
So I always skip Bonnie, who is one of my favorite people. I don't know what it is. I think I secretly have a crush on her that I'm afraid to expose. So Bonnie, why don't you fill us in on History Association, and then maybe Layla can talk about PRAM and PTA, and then we'll be able to come back and focus entirely on the LUDRC part.
Well, I'd like to invite everybody to our annual meeting, which will take place on Sunday, May 18th at the Methodist Church in Fellowship Hall. And non-members are welcome to come. If you're a non-member, it's perfectly acceptable if you don't want to come to the business part of the meeting. So if you kind of slip in sometime between 2:30 and 2:45, you will get to enjoy the refreshments, and you will get to hear Jim Davis talk about Dorothea Lange. And I wholeheartedly agree with Philip about if you have heard Jim talk, you know that they're very educational and entertaining. If you haven't, this would be a good time to start. So that's May 18th, Sunday, 2:00 or 2:30, depending upon your preference, at the Methodist Church. And then I wanted to mention the program that Susan White has put together at the community center this coming Wednesday, May 7th, on the Filipino families of Standard Oil shipping. And I'm just going to briefly read the paragraph that she wrote. To be a part of the American dream, wartime and post-war Richmond Filipino Americans moved to the Richmond area during and after World War II for job opportunities at Standard Oil Shipping. The families who came grew up together and bonded and are still close community today. Sisters Mary Ruiz and Josephina Roscoe, who is the local El Sol, and other friends will share the stories of their fathers and their families, along with the banners and the books that they have compiled. So that's this Wednesday at 6:30 in the community center. I'm sure it will be an excellent program.
Thanks, Bonnie. I've seen a couple of incarnations of that. It's super interesting, and it involves more of your neighbors than you might imagine. And then we'll just hear from Layla, and then we can go to the Western Drive project.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. Just speaking on behalf of PRAM. We are still available for rentals, kids' birthdays, also for meetings. We have some for our PTA, scout meetings. We do have Wi-Fi now, thanks to money that we've gotten from grants. Of course, bathrooms and play areas for the kids. If anyone's inclined, please do come to our little garden help weed, plant something, please check out our website at pram.net for our programming. There's story times in Spanish, coffee times, and then this summer there's a Bright Side Camp in July. So look that up for ages 4 to 10. I posted the info on that camp on the chat. And I also posted a photo about scouts. Elisa Padilla is trying to get scouts going on, including the Point Richmond area kids. And there are quite a few around here, so check that out. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Layla. And we'll be working with Pram, as I mentioned, on some type of celebration for the crossing guard at the end of the summer. Okay, thanks for putting up with that. I just thought it was a good idea to put our undivided attention into an extremely brief synopsis from Peter on the LUDRC on 237 Western Drive. A brief presentation if someone wants to see it from David, who is the architect. And we have Christine speaking on behalf of the owner as well. It may not be necessary to make a presentation, but they're there if you have any questions to answer. I just want to, before I turn it over to Peter, I want to remind the community, the PRNC and the LUDRC, Land Use Design Review Committee, do not make policy. We do not issue permits. We do not issue variances. We do not deal with infrastructure. Those things will happen when the applicant applies to the city planning department. And at that time, if there is additional communication, the residents, of course, will have an opportunity to speak in front of the planning department. Our goal is simply to find out what the community has to say and communicate that to the city. So Peter, can you tell us a little bit? You've been up to all the meetings. I had to miss yesterday's.
Yes, so we had, let's see, besides Rod Satry and Bonnie, we had Graham, who's here, and Susie Coyd, Christine Newbert, Susan Glendinning, Julia Alexander. So it was pretty well attended. And I walked Western Drive and taken a look at that area, and I've also driven it. So I think I have a pretty good feel for what's going on. So the owner of the property wants to build property there, and it is going to have some impact on his neighbor's view, but I think they've done a lot. They've tried to do a lot to compensate for that. And as a result, we've heard the proposals, and we voted on it to present it to the city, or well, actually to present it to the PRNC and have the PRNC vote on it with our recommendation to accept it as it is. Now or I should say Rod pointed out that the sewer moratorium is under the city's control. We have no control over that. And so that's between the developer and the city. And the same thing with they're asking for a 12% increase for the ADU. And again, that has nothing to do with the PRNC. It's nothing to do with us. That again, that's actually a state situation, ADU. So we are recommending that it be passed on to the city, and then the planning department can make their own judgment based on their expertise about this.
Thank you. So Peter and I were communicating with Rod earlier today, and there are some contingencies that the LUD are. So what happens is I will write a letter based on the vote that is about to happen. And there are some contingencies that the LUDRC wants to present to the Planning Commission. And remember, this project hasn't gone in front of the Planning Commission yet. The contingencies are that the builder, the developer, has offered to lower the height of the ADU the accessory dwelling unit that's closest to the street to allow for more view. I think it was 16 inches. Is that correct, David? That you were able to shimmy?
Oh, yeah, I'm Rod and LUDRC folks wanted 16 inches lower than as presented.
And so that's one of the things that we are communicating with the city that you asked, that the community asked for, and thank you for your compromising on that. This we are asking that the city seriously consider any variance that is inconsistent with the new regulations on bay views. So the things have changed quite a bit since the larger houses in that neighborhood were built many years ago. So we will be monitoring that the city, of course, is following any state or regional laws concerning bay views. We are also asking the contingency that the city considers any infrastructure issues such as sewer use and sewer or water mains. It goes without saying, the city is not going to put in a project that doesn't have sewage, but as Peter pointed out, the LUDRC and the PRNC has nothing to do with infrastructure. I just want to point out we need to be really, really careful about talking about the sewers because the moratorium is probably illegal. And so it's in place right now and we're all up in the air about it. And I encourage the community to continue to keep on the city council about solving this problem with the sewers. And there was some conversation with Rod. Peter, this happened, I talked to him this afternoon, you may or may not be aware of this, that there was some question about, there's some kind of regulation about the distance from public mass transit to the homes.
Yeah.
And whether or not there needs to be a parking variance. Our understanding is at this point is that this project is outside of that distance. The idea that anyone would park on Western Drive in order to catch a bus somewhere is a little far-fetched, but we are asking that the city define the distance from mass transit to assure applicable parking compliance. So we need
that distance is a half a mile, and it turns out, according to Google Maps, that it's actually 0.55, so little more than half a mile. Pretty close.
Yeah, so, but I think it's really important. I don't know. It's really important that if this is a regulation that we bring it to the city and the city determine it. And then, obviously, David, that's going to be part of your application.
I would point out too, though, that the BCDC, the Bay Conservation Development Commission, they're going to weigh in on this too, because this is right on the bay and they control everything from 100 feet in. So regardless of what our recommendations are, and even what the city chooses to do, the BCDC, might weigh in too.
So I want to thank the community. There are a lot of people in the community that are opposed to this project, particularly those whose views are affected. I think they've done a really excellent job at researching every conceivable objection to this project. And I think that the LUDRC did a really good job at writing this proposal or this vote to include those concerns. So basically, we want to move this on because we've done all that we can do. So are there any questions specifically? Do you all want me to read the resolution before Edie puts it up so you understand what we're about to vote on? No one cares. Okay. Okay, so Graham, so here's how the resolution is going to read, almost verbatim. The language is just a little bit different because we had to pose this as a question. The LUDRC endorses the project with the following contingencies. The ADU at street level is lowered by 16 inches, which the architect has already agreed on. to work as closely as possible. The city seriously consider any variance that is inconsistent with the new regulations about bay views. That's BC, what do you call it, Peter?
BCDC.
BCDC, thank you. Because that might include also the distance from the lot line to the house so that you can see between the houses. The city considers, this goes without saying, the city considers any infrastructure issues such as sewer use and sewer or water mains. That's out of our hands, that's infrastructure. And that the city defines the distances from mass transit to applicable, to assure applicable parking compliance. So they confirm the distance from the mass transit, and if there needs to be a change in parking, that they consider that in the application. So that's what we've got, because even though there are many, many complaints, the bottom line is that that's what they all narrow down to, is one of those 4 points. So let's go ahead and throw this vote up. If you are an active member of the PRNC, you can vote. A yes vote supports the LUDRC findings with those contingencies.
I just want to make sure everyone can see it.
Yep. Cease. Okay, let's give a countdown on that vote for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Edie, do we have results? Okay, so it's overwhelmingly yes. We will double check to make sure that the people who voted are actually active members. And then we will certainly facilitate any community members as the project goes in front of the Planning Commission. We will help in any way we can to make sure that the community then has the next level of voices. David, I know you got all pretty and got dressed for us and had a presentation ready. Thank you.
Yeah.
We didn't need it. I think the 3 meetings you and Christine attended obviously did the job.
Okay.
So do you have any comments on this before we wrap up our meeting?
I'll be as quick as possible.
Sure.
So the bus stop thing is sort of a moot point, because Google Maps says half mile. But the key thing is, with an ADU, you can have a parking for an ADU is allowed in a driveway and allowed as tandem and allowed not covered. Parking for the main house is the 2 spaces that are covered. So even if they require parking, we've got it in the driveway anyway. So I mean, we're right on the line. Google Maps says half mile, but if you measured it with a stick going uphill, downhill, that adds about 5–10% because of, inclines, that kind of stuff. But I bet the planning department or whoever regulates this is just going to check Google Maps.
Yeah, it's easy to measure it. It doesn't matter whether you're going up and down. It's the same distance. It's just a wheel that measures distance.
Right. I did a screenshot of Google Maps that said a half mile, put it on the cover sheet. Let's see what they say. And either way, we've got the extra parking space. So it's like not worth fighting about. In other words,
it's already voted on.
Yeah.
Right. Ultimately,
I do want to point out that has been voted on, and so while we appreciate the discussion about it, that decision has already been made now.
Right.
And we have asked the city to look into it, and that's all we can do. So
okay.
Thank you.
And then one other small point, I know you guys already voted on the letter and it's locked in, it's getting late, is what I gather from discussions with the LUDRC is the project is at the very minimum compatible with the neighborhood as far as height from the street and mass and scale and that kind of stuff. And it's really helpful for the permit process if it was mentioned by you guys that it's some word like compatible or something like that. That would be helpful to me to get through the permit process. But that's your option. That's my last comment.
Okay, thanks. I'll drop that letter. It will be posted. We'll send you copies of it, and we'll, if there are any other issues concerning this property, we'll maybe see you again. And we like you very much, but we hope not.
I think, thank you so much, Phil, and anybody here who, on this current meeting, who has been part of the process over the past months, Peter and Graham, and certainly the rest of the neighborhood. It has truly been a pleasure from our perspective, getting to know everybody and learning about just how important, seriously, Point Richmond is to everybody who lives there. And I think that's the fundamental, takeaway about all of this. I mean, somebody wants to build a house on a lot that's vacant and that they own. So
thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having us.
And thanks for hanging in. I know we were running quite late today.
No. Thank you very much.
All right, so this allows us to wrap up. We have anybody who wants to speak a little on public forum? No, it looks like we're all ready to tuck ourselves softly into our fluffy beds. Any remembrances or celebrations? Well, celebrations are always nice, but remembrances usually not so much. So I'm glad that I think we can wrap this meeting up, and we can wrap this with all of that drama. We can wrap this meeting up only 5 minutes late. So I thank you all for joining us. We intend to have the police chief or the assistant police chief as our guest next month, in a continuation of the conversation about emergency evacuation routes, crime in general, but specifically because the police handle the emergency evacuation routes and evacuation. We want to hear from them. We originally intended to have Chief French, but Chevron was under a time constraint concerning presenting this project. So we bumped the police chief, but she's supposed to come next month. What is happening in the meanwhile? Nothing PRNC related. Oh, we're still looking for new officers. It is quite likely that we will vote to change the charter and to allow officers to serve more terms, because we simply can't really find folks. Like, we don't have anyone applying for treasurer. Margie's great at it. She wants to still do it. Then we were going to have Peter do it, and that she was going to help. And it's a rather convoluted way for the existing officers to keep changing their titles. So we might just kind of change the number of terms you can apply. But we still would welcome anyone who can balance checkbook. It's not a hard job to apply for that position as the treasurer. And thank you all for joining us. Thanks for sitting with us. And thanks for all your cooperation on the LUDRC matter. And we'll see you next month.
Thank you so much. Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye now.
Nice meeting.
Thanks, Peter.